Well, hey there, everybody. You are live with Trans Northland. We are back, and I am still Sean Hayes. I'm the executive director and a co-founder here at Trans Northland, and I am super stoked, as always, to be ready to jump into another cool conversation with community members right here in the Northland. And so for today's guest star, I am super excited to welcome to the stage Dr. Tara Richter. And would you just go ahead and introduce yourself briefly?
Sure. So my name is Dr. Tara Richter. I've been in the community for quite some time now. I am a clinical psychologist, and one of the things that I specialize in or I love working with is individuals that identify as gender nonconforming or transgender. So it's one of my great passions, so I'm super excited to be here.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I'm so excited to have you join us. Thank you, for taking the time. I know you've been busy getting a private practice started and doing all sorts of stuff, which we'll definitely get into later in our conversation. But yeah, for those of you who have tuned in before, I believe this is our 7th conversation, which feels so cool because I love this kind of stuff. And so we are just excited to continue with what we're calling our Gender Joy segment to start off. And Tara, I'm trying to think, you might be our very first cisgender guest on the show. And so welcome. Hello.
Hello. I'm honored. I am very privileged to be here.
Yes. And so it was interesting as I was preparing, for our conversation, and, we send out questions and prompts ahead of time to our guest stars. And I was like, oh, gender joy. Oh, yeah, of course. Like cisgender folks have gender joy moments. And so I thought, what a cool sort of realization for myself. It's sort of when I go and do trainings with folks where like we talk about pronouns and I'm like, trans people have pronouns and cis people have pronouns. We all have pronouns and we all experience gender joy. And so, Tara, is there anything, that comes up for you that you would be willing to share?
Yeah, I was super excited when you had mentioned that this was the topic, because I think that there is the assumption that, we just don't really think about gender. If you're cis, there's no reason to think about it. And obviously there is. Because for me, gender joy is really about that congruency between how you feel inside and how you are perceived outside. And so that connection or that, affirmation is a big deal, not only for cisgender people, but for everyone. And I think that you can feel great joy when everything is matching and clicking right along. At least for myself, that's really where I've experienced it before, is just feeling comfortable in my own skin, right? And figuring out like, what does that look like? What does that mean? And that's important for anyone, to make sure that they're being authentic and doing the authentic things that they need to do for themselves.
Totally. Yep, I would agree wholeheartedly. And I think it's interesting, when we think about the folks who are maybe on the fence, maybe they don't think they know a trans person, but they see all these headlines and, the attacks that have been happening on our community. And I think just these small questions of like, yeah, what does your gender feel like for you? What does it feel like in your body? And I think if more cisgender folks sort of took a little bit of time to imagine or to like think about those things, I think it would create a lot more understanding, in my hopeful heart, and maybe curiosity and less judgment, right? And so, when I think about me, I'm like, what's a gender joy thing that I'm experiencing right now? I'm gonna go with my curly hair right now, because like we've officially entered winter, that's for sure. Holy moly, the roads are still kind of messy around me. But typically in the winter time, lately at least, I've sort just like let my hair grow out. And I remember early on when I had started transitioning, you know, maybe 1 or 2 years into my own personal journey. Oftentimes I would get misgendered, and it was usually because my hair was a little bit longer, or for some reason in my head, that's what I was feeling, or getting this vibe of, oh, it's got to be my curly, you know, longer hair that's giving it away or something. And even just a couple of years ago, you know, I experienced being misgendered, I think in a drive-through when I had my hair a little longer. And I've sort of gotten to this point where I'm like, you know what? F it. Like, I love my curls. And there's definitely a point where it goes from short to like this length that I hate it for sure. But it's finally at a point where I'm digging the curls, and it just feels good to like choose how I want my hair to be rather than like what I think anyone else is going to think, or what they, you know, if they care or not. People pleasing. We are quitting that this year.
That is my resolution. Stop with the people pleasing.
Yeah. That's right. Oh my goodness.
That's a great example. And I love that because, you know, for everybody, it's going to be something a little different, but it's all valuable and it's all good information. And I think what you said about people being more informed and understanding and taking a few minutes, because people don't necessarily always think about their gender because they're not forced to. You know, how lucky that you don't have to think about that it just is, and it's quote easy, right? Because it's not for everybody. Not only to figure out kind of what identity is and what that looks like, but then also how do I express that, you know? And I love the fact that I can wear a pair of jeans, I can wear a skirt, I can wear whatever I want. And it doesn't mean that I'm less of my identity than I was if I'm wearing the other thing, right? So
right.
I like that. So long hair, curly hair, you know, just being able to embrace who you are and how you want to be in the world, and that, you know, fits with whatever label, right? That's the hard part, is that people are like, well, do I pass? Am I enough? You know, and it's like, well, how do you feel? You know, does it feel good? Does it feel congruent and authentic?
That's right. And it's almost like we each individually can define femininity or masculinity or anything outside and around that, right? Like, it shouldn't be up to anyone else, let alone society, to tell us, right? But that's a whole nother nother conversation we could probably have for an hour. So thank you for sharing in our Gender Joy segment. And so as we sort of transition into our next segment, which is basically just me shouting out, Trans Northland has this super cool events calendar that has so many different LGBT plus events. It has, you know, our current program offerings with Trans Northland, including we have the tea room that is open every Tuesday and Thursday from 9 a.m. until noon down at the Imaginarium in downtown Duluth. But then we also try really hard to add like any and all events that we see out there, whether it's by a drag group or another nonprofit or whoever. We want to share all of these different ways that community members can connect. And it used to be there were only so many options. And now, you know, it's like expanded and exploded in such good ways, I think. And so, you know, for example, coming up on Friday, we've got the Queer Art Club with Outfront Minnesota that happens every Friday from 3:30 to 5:30 down at Studio Cafe, again, down in downtown Duluth. And then I'm literally just looking at the calendar right now. So on Saturday, oh yeah, Studio Cafe's got a lot of cool stuff happening. If you haven't checked them out, super cool little coffee shop. They are also hosting a queer makers market and mutual aid drive on Saturday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. So you should definitely go check that out. Buy local holiday gifts for your folks, especially from queer and trans people. Please.
I'm going to put a plug in and say holidays are coming up. We all need gifts.
That's it. That's it. You know it. And then maybe the last one I'll highlight is coming up on Sunday, which this is now happening every first Sunday of the month. We have the new Transforming Families Support Group that's a brand new Duluth chapter. They're based in the Twin Cities, and they do amazing work with trans and gender expansive youth, all ages, which is amazing because we've always struggled in the Northland to have offerings for littles, below age 13. And so they have that. And then they also support and have groups for caregivers and parents and guardians of trans and gender expansive youth. So that's a super cool thing that's happening at Peace Church on the first Sunday from 1 to 3 p.m. So I'm super stoked about that one. We love Transforming Families.
They're great. I got a chance to connect with them at Trans Joy Fest, and they were amazing. They were so excited that they're going to be in Duluth. So I was really jazzed when I heard that.
Yes, it's been a long time coming. I know they've been talking about it. And, one of our board members, our board treasurer actually, is also on their board of directors. And so just shout out to Cam, because I think he also was like, come to Duluth. So yeah, a lot of cool things happening out in the community. And I guess here at Trans Northland, we just really believe in connecting into community, whatever way that looks like for you. We just want folks to feel connected, to feel like they are not alone, because you definitely are not. There are many, many of us out here, including our wonderful allies. So connect in. And I lied. I have to now highlight that I forgot, but we literally just confirmed the details of our next upcoming event with Trans Northland, which we are partnering with the amazing folks at Free Mom Hugs, the Duluth group here. And our event is going to be cookies, cocoa, and crafts. We are finalizing all the details on that, but that will be on Sunday, December 21st, and it will be family friendly, and it will be at the Imaginarium. So we'll nail down a time and get that on our events calendar. Woo! Almost forgot that one. That's an important one. So now I am so excited to get into our deeper conversation with you here, Tara. And I am going to pull up our first sort of prompt here, and I'll just say, I know I've known you for many years, Tara, and we've worked together, for a long time, and then including, what we'll get into, the support group that you offer. And so I'm just, again, stoked you're here with us. Thanks. And yeah, can you share the story, or a story, right? Yeah. About how you decided to kind of get into working more with trans community and gender expansive folks, and how that all came to be.
Yeah, it's a great story, actually. It's a good story. So I came to kind of be a psychologist a bit later in my life. I did lots of other things. I have an undergraduate degree in chemistry, which who knows, right? Like, we all do different things, and realized I am not a chemist. I am much more a people person. And so I love that, it came to me in a time in my life that was really good, and I was ready to do the work. And so through my grad school, I had the opportunity of having an individual that came in, a speaker, who was entirely open about their identity and allowed all of the students to ask the inappropriate questions, to be just ignorant about everything. And that to me was so impactful, and that they were so honest and open about it, because everybody's afraid to ask questions. They don't want to hurt people's feelings. They don't want to be, rude. And also, it's not everybody's responsibility to educate people on being trans or having different identities. That's not their role. But this person has taken it upon themselves to kind of do these things and educate people. I often think about if I could connect with them now, which I don't have contact information, but I actually would, to let them know that they're one of the reasons why I really started to have a passion for working with identity. it was just a cool opportunity that I don't think a lot of clinicians get. We're not well trained. There's not a lot of opportunity to sort of explore that. And then my paths kind of, wiggled around and I did lots of different things, but I always came back to identity and gender. And honestly, it was the people. It's the people that I had the opportunity to work with. And I saw such resiliency and bravery and just all the things that give me goosebumps as a therapist. And I'm like, who wouldn't want to work with this community and this population? And I worked really hard to try to educate myself, and I still do every day. And it, I'm certainly not an expert in any way, but I love to learn, and I really try to stay up to date on things and try to really be a resource for people. I have read the W Path cover to cover. I don't recommend it. It is about 700 pages of all like medical stuff. But really just to be a good ally and to be present and to show up with people. And I think it shows. I don't work with people that I don't empathize with or that I don't truly care about. I'm very authentic in my therapy. And so I think most of my patients would say, yep, she's pretty authentic. You see me out at the grocery store, it's pretty much how I'm going to be there too. So it's a cool way to sort of, have gotten into this. And then I love doing a lot of psychological testing. That's kind of my jam. It's like a puzzle and kind of figuring things out. And so because there weren't many people doing it, I kind of moved into doing a lot of autism testing. And it became really interesting about the connection that I saw with how many individuals identified as gender nonconforming and also identified as or having autism spectrum disorder. And so I was intrigued by this, and, that kind of rolled around in my head. And then I went to a training that was put on by Mayo when they were developing their gender identity clinic. And it was really good. And they talked about this connection that it's like often does go together. We don't know why, no clue, but it does go together. And I was like, that's why I have the population I do. It was funny because people sort of came to me. I didn't necessarily say this is going to be my niche or this is what I'm going to do. But I just had such connection with people, and especially in those ways. And I think having that background in being, very open and very supportive with identity and sexuality, I think that sort of helps people then when they're coming in for diagnosis or testing. That's scary, right? You don't want to work with somebody that doesn't understand who you are, and identity is such a big piece, of course. And so being able to at least have that background, even if identity is not the topic, it's just important that, they have someone in the community that is respectful, that understands, and that is willing to learn and make mistakes and, do the best that they can for the community.
Yeah, I really appreciate that last piece there too. Like like we're always learning, right? We're always learning to do better. Even myself, I mean, like the younger generations, right, of trans and gender expansive folks are teaching me so much all the time. And it's like, oh no, I've like moved into that next like older person bracket where like I don't know all the like trans things anymore. And I have to, keep up and like work on it because I want to continue to learn and be able to treat people they want to be treated, use the correct pronouns, and really just see people for who they are. And I think I've said this a lot to people lately. Maybe I mean I've been talking to a lot of churches lately. Maybe that's what this is bringing up for me. I was at a church recently who's going through the process of becoming a welcoming and affirming congregation, and I sort of, it's like you look out into a sea of faces and, I'm sort of always thinking about who my audience is and how to sort of like connect with them in a way that will keep them open, keep them curious, and not just shut down and be like, trans people are weird. I mean, I'm definitely weird, and I think we all are in our own ways.
Wholeheartedly.
So weird. I'm so weird. But I always make a point of saying, you're going to make a mistake. You're going to mess up. You are going to use the wrong pronouns and you're going to use the person's old name because these are like literal pathways that have been ingrained in our brains. And so it takes practice. It takes being intentional, and doing the work. And, I don't know. I think allies are very concerned, and like potential allies are very concerned about messing up and what that might mean. And if they would get canceled, or, who knows what everybody's fears are. But I mean, I also think that for trans folks too, it's like, how do you respond when someone messes up your pronouns, when someone, doesn't meet you the way that you want to be met? And it's just challenging. Like, humanity is messy. And I feel like the best way I know how to learn is the hard way, sadly. So anyways, I appreciate that.
Hard knocks, right?
Yeah, because I'm sure like you've had instances where you're working with trans clients or patients, and you have messed up, right? And like I'm curious what you would say to those experiences of like, how does it happen in the moment, and then how do you sort of work through it, personally as the therapist, and what does that look like for you?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it happens a lot. I mean, we're human, right? We mess up. But, I think it's making sure that you recognize it. Nothing's worse than having somebody mess up a pronoun and then they apologize and then continue to mess up the pronoun. It's then, did you really take it seriously, or are you just not, but what's going on here? So how I've always handled it is, I apologize and I say, gosh, I am really sorry. I realized I just messed that up. Let's strike that and let's start again. And then I move on, because again, it's not anybody else's job to make me feel better about it. The embarrassment stays. I've said a few things sometimes and I'm just like, oh, I so didn't just say that, did I? And yep, I did. And so, a lot of it is about that awareness and making a commitment to correct that or move forward again when it happens. And they keep happening in different ways, and we all make mistakes. But I think it's really important to acknowledge that, and that we're all still learning. And, people are very forgiving when you genuinely care. People know. People can tell that you do really like me. And that always surprises people. Yeah, of course I like you. Like, I wouldn't work with you if I didn't like you. There's that connection there. And I think, there's nothing worse than like, going to an appointment or something, let's say a medical appointment, and then getting misgendered, and then it continues to keep happening. And it's like, gosh, how do I trust that person if they can't even get my pronouns right? And so I've worked hard to work with individuals, not only clinicians, but, physicians and other people who do want to be more informed and, better about, how do I do this or how do I handle this? And so I try to make myself a resource for people too, that they can say, gosh, I just did this. No judgment. It happens. Let's talk about how to move forward from that. And what do we need to do? I always talk about the repair. Like, what do we need to do to repair that, to make it okay? Because it's not the person that you harm's job to make that okay if you're the one that messed up.
Man. Ooh, yeah. Yeah. I love that. And it reminds me, I was just having a conversation last night with someone about, this was about parent guilt. But it's like, oh man, I messed up, whatever it is. I yelled at my kid, that's the part. But it's like, no, I think you're right. I think it is the repair part that is most important and matters the most to whatever that relationship is, whether it's me and my daughter, or you and a client, or anyone, right? Because we always mess up, and then we can always choose to learn and not mess up again.
Yeah, we'll just mess up in different ways.
That's right. Exactly. Not the same way, in different ways, and then learning more. Yes.
And, honestly, that's what connects us, right? I mean, we're all human. We all have needs, and they're not so different. I mean, the details differ, not to say that people aren't special. Of course they are. But, it's the humanness that connects us. And if you can't be human and make mistakes, gosh, I mean, that's going to be a problem, because it just is going to happen. And it's important that, especially people who, are in the medical field or who do therapy, those sorts of things. I mean, people are really coming to us and trusting us with their, story. And that never, I never take that for granted. And that's always important. And I want to treat that with the utmost respect that, I can possibly do. But that doesn't mean being perfect, because, you got to embrace those imperfections too.
Yes, most definitely agree. And so that kind of leads us, I think, pretty naturally sort of into our next question. And just generally, I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about your work or your practice, but then I'm going to throw this up on the screen here too, because I want to hear more about this group that you've been facilitating. And I mean, I know things, but I want you to tell everyone else, because I think it's just, another great way that some folks could potentially connect into community and find another safe place to be.
Yeah. So a little bit about, so I was at another agency, a local hospital agency, for about 11 years. And I really got to see a lot of individuals with gender questions. I was very lucky. I got to, kind of develop that and have the opportunity to see those individuals. And it became pretty clear that people needed a place to connect. And have a safe place to learn some solid, good therapy information, but to also have connections with other people kind of going through things that they're also going through. And so hence the group was formed. Right now we are open to adults, but I'm not opposed to doing youth. I work with transgender youth all the time. And if I could get enough people, so that's a little plug out there. If there are people who really would love to, have their kids in a group, I would love to hear from you. So I have this lovely group. And I mean, I tell them all the time how much I adore them. It is really their group. It's not really my group. I mean, I'm there to facilitate and provide psychoeducation. There's typically a topic, and that can be decided by the group. If they have ideas, sometimes it's decided by me. Sometimes it's more last minute, like, what am I feeling in the moment? And this is what we're going to talk about today. So it can be organic in that way too, but it's really about connection. And I can't tell you, watching this group, and it's an open group, so people come and go. You don't have to do, you can do one session and you feel good and you don't come back. You can do every single group. It's completely open. But to watch the connections that these individuals have formed and how they treat each other. And I mean, it's one of my favorite times of the month, every month when I get to do this. It's just such a privilege. And so I made the decision to move to a private practice. Lots of different reasons. I wanted to be able to do more in the community. I wanted to be able to do some pro bono work and things like that, and pay the bills, right? That's the reality of it. But I like being able to offer these things for individuals that, really can't afford traditional therapy because maybe they're underinsured or they're not insured at all and just can't pay out of pocket. So it is a cool group of people. We have anywhere from 9 people. Sometimes it can go up to 15 people. Because I'm not billing insurance right now, people are coming for free. I'm doing it completely pro bono. So as many people that want to come can come. If I do end up ever billing insurance, which I'm hoping to stay pro bono if I can. So if I can do that, I would love to stay doing that, because then all of the people can come and numbers don't matter. But there are caps and things like that. And if that happens, I'll make another group. I don't mind. I mean, I am more than happy to do that. It's a good problem to have.
Right. That's the best problem to have. More people than we planned on.
Yes.
And I think, it just speaks to the need, though. I mean, so many folks have been struggling, the last 11, well, now, I guess 12 months, almost a year, sheesh, under this current administration. And I'm sure that you as a therapist have been busy, providing support and care for folks. And I just think that's a super cool way where it's like someone like you can be there to sort of help guide and share knowledge as needed or as wanted. And then like the trans folks in the room and gender expansive folks get to really like create that. And then I love what you shared about like the relationships that have formed, right? I mean, it's like, that's what we need. We need to take care of each other. And, it's like, that's how, I don't know. A lot of my friends are like, how do we meet friends as adults, and how do you do that? We're all so exhausted after working, and what do I got to join a sport league? Like, how do I meet people? You know, here's a way, you know,
Yes.
there's this group. And as you said, it's free to attend right now. So maybe now is the best time for you to have sort of an influx of folks. And then you'd be like, bam, we got 2 groups now. Yeah, the more the merrier, right?
I feel like that because, you know, I've ran it now for about almost 2 years now it's been. And so I have kind of that group that's kind of stayed with for a while. They've been there for most of it. But they're so kind and supportive of new members coming in. I think that's always hard. Like, oh, this is an established group. It's going to be weird. I mean, yeah, it's weird because it's just new for people. But everybody in the group does their best to make people feel welcomed and, you know, just respected, and they have a voice at the table too, just as everybody does. And it brings different energy and different ideas into the group. We're playing around with some ideas now. I've had some feedback from some group members that they would like to share stories, their personal stories. And I've checked in with the group and kind of gotten feedback from everyone. How do you feel about this? Do you think this would be, you know, a good thing? People seem interested. So we may even create like a different type of group where you could come and share your story with a smaller group if that is more comfortable for people. Just different ways that people can feel heard and share, even if they're not, like, I have a lot of people that are like, oh, I'm not really a group person. You know, I'm not sure how I would feel about that. That's okay. I mean, you can come and check it out. You don't have to say anything. We will be welcoming. And if you choose not to say anything, that's okay too. And you never know. You may find yourself talking when you didn't anticipate talking. So it's a pretty neat energy. Sometimes I think that energy that the group creates definitely permeates. And so I know that some of the newer individuals that have just kind of started a group have said, oh, I want to come back. That's what we want to hear.
Right. Come on back. Yeah. And I think it's, you know, it's important to note. So, you know, Trans Northland, we've always offered a support group. And the difference here, right, is that our group is a peer-to-peer support group, right? I'm not a therapist or licensed in anything like that. And none of us are who facilitate that group. And so, you know, that has a very different feel than probably what your group feels like. And so folks are, you know, again, welcome to check out your group and to come check out ours if that's more your vibe. And I saw this comment, so I'm going to throw it up here, you know, Tara, if you can share the details or how maybe folks could get in touch if they want to get those details.
Absolutely. So I try to make it as easy as possible for people to come to group. And so group right now is at my private practice. The group will laugh if anybody's listening because we have a room that we meet in. It is challenging. It is, you know, it's not the nice, you know, put together space that we had prior when I was at a different agency. So it is kind of makeshift and we make do, and don't get thrown off by the medieval decor. It wasn't a choice.
What? You didn't choose that?
Yeah, exactly. We all have kind of like, oh, okay, this is a little weird, but everybody's good humored about it and we make it work. So right now we're meeting, it's the Arrowhead Place building. That's where my business is located. I'm on the first floor, so I'm suite 120, 125. I share with a friend who has her own business separate from mine. So that's usually where I see people. The group itself is on the second floor in the group room, the larger space. It's a meeting or community room, and it takes place on the second Thursday of every month. So, and it's at 5 p.m. Usually what I've been doing is I put a sign out front so that people know, like, hey, if you're here, and all it says is if you're here for Dr. Richter's group, come on in. It's on the second floor. You're on the second floor when you enter. There's free parking. So, you know, I emphasize that. It was an important aspect when I was looking at where I wanted to open a private practice, is that we needed to have, I wanted to be on a bus line and I wanted to be in an area where people could, you know, have easy access to us. Or to myself. And so, yes, so that's where group meets. It is lovely. How you get in contact with me, there is a website, and I know Sean has that information too. I don't know if you want to put it up. It's www.richterpsych, so that's RICHTER ChatherPsych.com. And so that'll pull up the website, and you can email me through the website, but you can, perfect. You can also email me. It's Tara, Tara at richterpsych.com. So either way, you can get in touch with me. I also have a phone number, all of that good stuff too. But I find that people seem to like to kind of do the internet back and forth just to test the waters. It's a safer way to interact with someone until you really get to know them. And so I am open to all forms of communication. You don't have to have a formal referral. That was another thing that was really hard, because when you're in a system, you kind of have to follow how the system works. And now I don't need to do that. So it is lovely. I do ask that people have a diagnostic assessment. So people are like, what is that? Do I have one? I don't know. If you have a therapist that you are currently seeing right now, chances are they've done a diagnostic assessment on you. That's usually that first appointment where they go through all the questions and you kind of sit there and wonder, am I ever going to talk about me other than just you answering specific questions about all these, different things? So if you have that, you can get that to me, and that is perfectly good. I do like to have conversations with people. That can be via email, just because I want to make sure that everyone is safe in the group. I take safety very, very seriously. And I've not had any issues with it, but I don't want people to, feel threatened. I don't want people who shouldn't be in the group to be in the group. I make people welcome, but I don't want anyone to come in and do any harm. So I'm careful about who comes into group. I do screen, but there's nothing that would necessarily, boot you from the group other than not being open or gender friendly in those sorts of ways. So I just want to make sure everyone's safe.
Yes, safety is key right now, especially. So I think folks will be really glad to hear that. And also just popping this up because medieval decor.
I love it.
It's a plus.
That is my niece. So say hi to my niece.
There you go. Hey,
Haley, it's good to see you. Maybe. I was hoping that they would get to join. So they're joining from the East Coast. So.
Oh, nice. I love it. Well, maybe you can consider keeping that medieval decor.
I'm pretty sure she would love it, because it is like the medieval lights. It's a little interesting. I'm like, I walk in there and it is another world. So.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Oh my gosh. Well, let's see. Where am I at? I got to get us to our next. Oh yeah. Okay. So we're going to talk about, probably for the rest of the time here, the holidays. And some people get really psyched about them. And I feel like many folks, especially in the LGBT plus community, are not always super psyched, right? Because so many of us have families that we may not feel comfy going back home to visit, or maybe we're alone on these holidays that, make things difficult. Maybe you gotta go, and like your parents make you go, right? And then you have to be misgendered all Christmas dinner or whatever it is, right? And so I wanted to have a conversation with you, Tara, about, because I'm sure, I think across the board, holidays are hard for folks in a lot of different ways. And, thinking about our trans and non-binary and two-spirit and gender expansive plus folks, right? How can we be taking care of ourselves? I'm gonna pop this up so I don't miss any of it, and each other, because I know I've got plenty of friends who I know have to interface with family and people that they, aren't seen as being their whole selves, right? They're not seen and affirmed in who they are. And that's a really hard place to put yourself in if you can't really get away from it. So what do you tell folks? I mean, I'm sure there's tons of things, but I'm gonna let you have the floor for this.
Yeah, no, it is a great question. And it's something that it was, in fact, one of our group topics recently too, what to do kind of during the holidays and how do I cope and what does that look like? And so, many individuals have developed their chosen family, and that's lovely. And we need those people in our lives. I have chosen family that I adore, and I wouldn't trade them for the world. And so that's really, really important, is to be spending time with the other people in your life that are supportive, that do see you for who you are. And that could mean just going for an afternoon or a morning and hanging out at the Imaginarium. Maybe just hanging with other people that are also kind of dealing with this, and just, feeling affirmed in that way. So that can help offset some of that frustration or trauma of having to kind of be with family who doesn't get it, right? And, take the pressure off yourself. You don't have to educate everyone. It kind of feels that way sometimes, because it's like, well, if I don't tell my family like what I need, then how are they going to know? Yep, I'm all about, like, this is what I need. I need you to refer to me by these pronouns. This is my name. This is what's really important. And sometimes people are like, oh, okay, you're telling me what I need to do. That's great. I just don't know what to do, or I'm not informed about it, and they want to learn. That perfect. If they're willing to learn, and I do that a lot too. I tell a lot of my patients, send your relatives my way. Like, as long as it's not a confidentiality issue or something like that. But I will be happy to tell them the information, because it's not their responsibility, right? And I'm happy to educate. I can provide resources and things that are great for all sorts of situations. So I try to be a resource in the community for that as well. And also, when we talk about have to, this is the thing that I always find interesting, right? Like, what does it mean to have to be with people who don't honor us or don't see us as our authentic selves? And I understand that's complicated, because there's lots of reasons why we may feel pressure, or we may, feel like this is obligated. Like, I don't want to lose these connections or these people, but they're also not in my life a lot, or they don't understand me. And so minimize the time that you have to be there. I always encourage people, have an escape route. So if you're driving or, carpooling with someone, make sure that there's someone that if you need to leave, they will understand and they'll be happy to leave with you, or drive yourself. Just have kind of that escape route. Know that at any point in time, you would be safe to leave if things got really overwhelming. The bathroom is a very good place to hide. Nobody questions it. I'm in here, right? Like, nobody asks. So hide in the bathroom if you need to, but find a corner or a space that's a little less overwhelming, because sometimes sensory issues can also creep up, along with all of the dysphoria and the things of the holidays and all of that as well. I don't know many families that sort of look like the Hallmark card. So, that's really hard to cope with. It's like, wow, that is not my family. I do not identify in that way. Or maybe I don't even want to celebrate, right? There's lots of people who are alone. And I always try to remind people, you may physically be alone, but you are not alone. Because there are many, many of us in the community that take time every single day to put good energy out there. I believe in karma, right? I believe in a good energy. And I always try to think about those individuals that may be alone and just say, I hope they don't feel that way. I hope they can look up at the sky at night, see all the stars that connect all of us, or find Mother Earth or spirituality or whatever it is that is right for them, but that connects us all. So it may feel like you're alone, but you matter to somebody, even if you don't realize you matter. And I think about that interconnected web. And if we pluck that web, what happens to all of the structures around that? The web may not fall apart, but it's not as stable, it's not as beautiful, and it's not as functional as it was when that other piece of the web was there. So I try to leave people with that, and do things that are fun and affirming. So if that means treating yourself to a new outfit or some new makeup or a hat or a scarf, or, whatever your budget can afford, right? Something that's a treat for yourself that makes you feel good. I talk to people a lot about having that piece that makes you feel good. You put it on and you're like, yeah, these are my glasses. Like, I feel good in these glasses, or this is the hat, right? There's just that item, that you have that makes you feel wonderful. Wear it. be confident. When it makes you feel good. I talk a lot about confidence. People say, well, I'm in the middle of my transition, or I don't feel like I'm where I need to be. And so it's hard for me to hear that, because I always see, I try to hold up a mirror for people to see themselves how they actually are. That's hard. People don't see themselves how they are. And so I try to share that with people and help them appreciate what they have, and just really feel good inside. It's hard to get external validation. You can't force people to listen or to be open-minded. If you could, I think I already would have done that.
Same. Totally.
I think, don't know how many windmills I've tilted at, but and I'll continue to keep tilting because it's important. But just go easy on yourself. Do things that are supportive for you, and pay attention to what you need. I always say, like, where do you hold your attention? If I'm wearing my shoulders as earrings, probably need to take some deep breaths.
Yeah, that's me. That's me, Tara.
Yeah.
That, and then every once in a while I'll notice that my jaw is like locked tight because I'm stressed or I'm anxious or I'm afraid or whatever it is. So yeah, I think that's something I was thinking about too, is it's something I've been trying to practice when I'm going into situations or places or, family groups or whatever it is, like where I'm really trying to pay attention to how I'm feeling. Because I don't know about other folks, but like I'm usually okay. Like when I can like sort of pump myself up and like go into these situations that I know are not going to feel as super comfy as I would like them to feel, and I can sort of get myself to go do the thing. But then, an hour, 2 hours in, I'm like, oh, I can just feel it in my body. I can feel the tension. I can feel myself tightening up. At that point, there's probably been some misgendering that's happened. There's conversations I don't want to really be a part of happening, and so it's like noticing that, being able to like do a couple things right in the moment. For me, that is like literally taking 3 deep breaths, because then it's sort of like it brings me back into me, where I can then be like, actually, I'm going to be ready to go in 15 minutes. I'm going to start packing up my stuff, or I'm going to call my bestie and see where she's at and see if we can meet up and like decompress after this family thing or this church thing, or, whatever it is that folks have to go to. And as you said, maybe don't have to, like, yeah, maybe this is something I need to consider for myself. It's like, I haven't made my own holiday plans. Am I going to go to that church service? Am I, like, how's it going to fit for me and what feels best for me? And so I think, even just planning ahead a little bit, you may have even mentioned that, right? Like where it's like, okay, on this day, I know I'm going to have to do this thing and I'm going to show up. And then right after, I'm going to have a plan to have a beer with a buddy, or whatever it is. I'm going to go home and turn on Lord of the Rings, or like what are those things, right, that can sort of bring us back to ourselves, help us feel more comfortable, and more okay, and like we can survive the next hour.
Right. And, in no way, shape, or form, are we saying that their behavior or however you're being treated is okay, but we're trying to make it okay for you to survive in that moment when you don't have much else. Your breath always comes with you. So we start shallow breathing. So if you notice, like, you'll feel it in your lungs as opposed to your stomach and your diaphragm. So I always, like, I have to put a hand on my stomach and then I feel it rise and I'm like, oh, there we go. That's a good breath, right? Just because I need that feedback. I need to feel that rising, because that's what sort of brings that calm over me. I'm going to teach people a really quick thing that they can do too, because they always have this. So it's called, and I'm sure lots and lots of people know this already, but it's a good one in case you don't. But it's the 5 senses grounding technique. And so easy way to do it. You've got your hand, right? So you're going to think of 5 things that you can see. So you look around whatever your room you're in, and I have my desk, I have some Legos, of course. I have like, a calendar here. And so I would name out loud 5 things I can see. Then I'm going to go down to 4 things that I can feel. So I happen to have corduroys on, so I like the feel of that. I like my nails going across it. It makes like a really nice sort of feel for me, or the feel of the paper, or what else do I feel? And feel can be like I can feel my body, in my chair right now, in my back against the, so feel can be a lot of different things. Then you're going to do 3 things that you hear. So right now it's pretty quiet. Usually there's sirens or the pipes are banging. That is a fun new sound that I'm working on getting used to. So it's pretty quiet. So sometimes, but if you're in a really chaotic situation, noticing just the volume level and how that makes you feel can be grounding, right? This can really help bring back to the present moment. And then after you do things that you hear, you're going to do 2 things that you can smell. And so smell is the only one of our senses that actually bypasses and doesn't go through other things. It's right to the brain. This is why when we talk about like fresh baked bread, we get an immediate, I get an immediate thought of like my grandmother when I was a kid making fresh baked bread. Some people say like mowing the grass gives that to them. And so what can you smell? And sometimes, oh, the food smells so good. And sometimes the food doesn't. So, maybe notice it, right? You don't have to label it as bad or good. You're just simply noticing. And then the final thing is taste. So if I know I'm going into a situation where I feel kind of anxious, I like to have something that is pretty sour. I like sour. I happen to have, in fact, my lovely icebreakers. I'm going to put a plug in for those. They're fizzy. They're sparkling. They feel good on my tongue. They make me happy. They taste good. And it gives me just a noticing of what do I taste? Because that one's kind of hard. Like people are like, I don't know, I taste my mouth. Like,
right. I taste my coffee.
Right, exactly. And so it doesn't matter what order you do them in. It's just if you do 5 things you taste, you're going to run out of things you taste. So that's why we do the easiest thing to see, right? You can see a lot of different things. You can't do it wrong. Even if you do 2 of them, it's still grounding and it'll bring you back. So if you don't remember the order, perfectly fine. But you've always got that. You bring your senses wherever you go, and that can go a long way to helping you clear your head and figure out what's your next move. Do you need to get out of the situation? Are you okay to continue? Well, how do you want to change this in the future? It'll give you some space to be able to have some rational thought to move forward.
Yes, and I love that. And I was like literally doing it with you, and that took like all of 3 minutes, not even probably. So, I mean, yeah, it's like not something you have to like go away to go do. Like you can do it right in the moment, sitting at the table at the meal or with a football game on, and you're just, yeah, that's really, I think helpful. And I've heard of that before, but I don't know that I've ever actually practiced it. And so yeah, it's something about like kind of getting your like logical brain to sort of click back in, right? And get out of that fight, flight, or freeze, or fawn, or there's a lot of those, right? But where we get stuck and we're like, what do we do next? And so that, I mean, if y'all did it while you're watching, shout out and let us know if that helped you. But yeah, that was really helpful.
So and now you get your honorary degree because now you can teach it to people.
Cha-ching. Nice. Okay. I love it. Just another tool for the tool bag,
Yep. I'm big on that because people really want practical things. I mean, I love therapy. I know therapy works, but sometimes people are like, well, how many sessions is this going to take before I'm better? Well, first of all, there's nothing wrong with you in the sense of being a human being. I always try to emphasize that for people, but change takes time and learning new skills take time. The 5 senses thing is something really easy in the moment. It can help with any kind of distress. It can help with depression. It can help with a lot of different things. It's just an in the moment kind of quick, easy thing that you can do. And nobody knows you're doing it. I mean, I love tapping. I teach people to tap on, different areas. But, if I'm sitting here at the table doing this, somebody's going to probably notice and comment on like, can you tell me about this? No, I don't really want to tell you about that. So it doesn't invite, those sort of comments that you don't really want to answer.
Totally. Yes. And that is very helpful too. And so, gosh, I'm just seeing our time is like going by so quickly, Tara.
Right,
But as we're wrapping up, can you share something, what's something that you use, personally? What are things that you do to kind of take care of yourself?
Yeah. So I make a point of no less than 3 times a day or at every stoplight, if I happen to be driving, to stop and check in with myself. How am I doing? How am I feeling? Am I carrying tension anywhere? Do I have a headache? Am I hungry? I get very absorbed into what I'm doing, and I love working with people. And so I need for myself to step back and say, like, how am I doing? Did I go to the bathroom today? Like, just some of those basic things that when we're all busy and we're flying through our day, we can kind of put aside. And those basic things are so important, especially during the holidays, because it can just feel like you're racing from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. That's okay. If you're literally in the car, I make a point of doing it at stoplights. It was a habit I started in grad school. I don't drive as much now, so I had to incorporate it in other ways. But, you can do it with, like, every time you go to the bathroom, check in. Pair it with something that you do. If you go to the water cooler or the coffee maker, and you're making yourself a cup of coffee, make that the time when you check in. So that way it's, taking that time. So that's one of my favorite things. The other way is to, spend time with my family. I adore them. They are a great, great source. In fact, my daughter was heartbroken I wouldn't let her skip school today to come and do this with us.
What the heck, Mom?
Sorry, honey, you can watch it in a replay. But I adore them. They are lovely people. And so it's nice to have a place where you feel loved and accepted. And so that is my safe place. And I would be amiss if I didn't mention building Legos. If you know me, I am a nerd and I have way too many Legos that I'm a bit ashamed of how many I have. And yet it is a good self-care strategy. I can get lost in building a big set and just the world kind of melts away. So.
Oh, man, that's it. We need those things, right?
Yes, all of them.
And this is just funny, but I found some TikTok creator who's like maybe an art therapist or something, right? And just all the videos are, of her and a sheet of paper, and she's doing all these like little doodles. And I have never felt comfy doing art of any kind, like stick figures, super good at those.
Okay.
But I've seen some of these videos now, and I'm like, I might actually give that a try. That kind of looks fun. And so, kind of going out of our way to, do a little research, check it out. What are your friends doing for self-care? Maybe that's something that works for you. Maybe you can do a Lego set together, right? Like, but I feel like those are super great ways. I feel like for me too, it's just connecting with my people mainly is how I probably the biggest way that I take care of myself. And I definitely tend to be someone who wants to isolate and pull away. I'm an Aquarius. And so it is a practice to really reach out and to say, hey, I'm having a shitty day today, bestie. Like, let's meet up and grab a coffee, or let's go sit by the lake, or whatever it is. And we got to do those things. We need every single one of us to keep going and to be a part of this community. So.
And I think it's really important just to kind of piggyback on that, when we call up a friend, or we call someone up, it's okay if you don't want advice. You just tell them, you can say, I just want your presence. I just want to be with you. Just because, I've got good vibes when we're together and I like that energy. I don't need you to solve the problem.
Right. Oof. That's a good reminder for me, because I'm a fixer and I want to just tell people what they can do and what they should do when I don't always follow those things for myself. So good reminder, Sean. Check in first. Right. What's helpful in this moment? Do you want ideas? Do you want me to just say that sucks and like empathize? That is awesome. So thanks for adding that. And we have come to the end of our time. I don't even know how this has happened, but
it flew by.
We're here. I'm throwing up banners, but thank you is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. We're just really glad that you took the time, Tara, to come and join us and share a little bit more about you, and share more of these things that we can be thinking about and preparing for as we get closer to, you know, this holiday season, all of the different holidays that are coming up. And so we're very grateful for your time. And then I'm going to throw this back up here for folks who are interested. So there is Tara's website at the new private practice. I don't even know. Did you say what it's called?
I didn't, because it's sort of a fun play on words and it tells you how geeky I truly am. But the name of my practice is Richter Scale Psychological Services. So, yes.
Love it.
I couldn't do anything with North or Blue or Waters. I feel like that has kind of been done. So I'm lucky enough to have a very interesting last name. And so why not use it? And I'm available. I do take new patients. I also can do letters and those sorts of things too. So if you have questions, just please reach out. If I can't do it, maybe I have some resources that I can point you in the right direction, but you're not alone out there. So don't struggle. You know, that's what I tell people. Just reach out and we'll get you where you need to be. May not be right away, but we'll get you there. So, you know that people out there care.
That's it. And we can connect you with Dr. Tara and lots of other therapists that are gender affirming. And yeah, it takes all of us. So thank you again for that. I'm going to pop up our website at the bottom there. So if you're new to Trans Northland or you want to learn a little bit more about what we do and what we offer, check us out at transnorthland.org. We will be back in 2 weeks with another surprise guest star, which I am keeping quiet at this moment. And so keep an eye out for that, who will be joining us next. And as a reminder, you can always check out our events calendar. If you're starting to plan your weekend, holiday shopping, all of that, we've got tons of cool info. And I will put a plug too. On our website resources page, there's a whole list of businesses that are either trans owned, LGBT plus owned, or ally businesses. Again, support local folks if you can. Go check out that list. And yeah, as a reminder, thanks for all of y'all who are watching this live. It's also going to be live now on Facebook and YouTube every 2 weeks. And we're working on a podcast version. So those of you who want to listen in the car, I'm a big podcast in the car guy. That will be coming soon. So stay tuned for more about that. And I think that's it. Any final words as we sign off?
I just want people to, treat each other with respect and kindness, and let's remember grace this holiday season.
True that. Well said. Let's have grace for each other and for ourselves. As always, we hope all of you take good care, reach out anytime, and we will see you in a couple of weeks.
Sounds good. Take care, everybody.